Hello, my name is Ryan Warnowski,
Hi, I'm Aiste Manfredini.
and today we're here to present Conversation Circle.
So our problem statement is create a transmedia experience centered around the freshman common reader that serves as an introduction to the book's larger theme and its relevance to the audience while allowing autonomy over participation. Our problem space is that incoming freshmen at Ball State University do not read the freshman common reader because they do not want to be told what to read. So based off the problem statement and problem space, we created the conversation circle, which is an enacting space that allows Ball State freshmen to meet other students and share stories that relate to the theme of the freshman common reader.
We had several design considerations when creating Conversation Circle, including requirements and then constraints. We knew that we needed to provide an environment for students where they can have a conversation that's outside of an academic environment. And we also knew that we needed to allow students to have autonomy over their participation, as well as creating a transmedia project. Some constraints we had to address was that we couldn't directly affect current events that of the freshman common reader. We knew that the freshman common reader book changes every year, so that it has to be a replicable experience, and that we had to include the book's central themes.
All right, so we created an experience that is an enacting space with a mystery box. The enacting space has goals. The goal of the enacting space is to share stories with other students, personal stories, and as well as make new friendships and create a sense of community for these students. Now, the mystery box will entail the QR codes that will direct students to a website of the experience that will be digital and physical.
So before creating Conversation Circle, we had to go through a large research process to understand Ball State freshmen, their perceptions with the freshman common reader, and how they engage on campus. And we did this through empathy, expert, and academic research. So the first thing we asked ourselves are, why do freshmen engage with or neglect the freshman common reader? And to accomplish this, we did a series of one-on-one interviews with Ball State freshmen. And the main finding is that there's a negative relationship with the book. Students said it was a hassle, or they just didn't like it. So then we asked ourselves, how do you positively motivate students? And we did this by conducting one-on-one interviews with expert sources. And what we found is that students require various levels of engagement and autonomy over their participation. Kelsey Temmerman, a former speaker for the Common Reader, said, it is easier to engage in an audience when it's less of an imposed, you've got to read this book approach. Based on these findings, we asked ourselves, why are students drawn to particular groups on campus? And as a cohort, we conducted ethnographic research that included observations, interviews, and online surveys. And generally what we found is that students participate on campus because they are part of a larger community that's built on similar interests. And from one of our interviews with a Zumba instructor on campus, she told us that it's not as much about being active as it is about being in a community in the Zumba class. So then after pulling all this research together, we wanted to conduct extra academic research, and we did this by going to Ball State Library databases. And we found that students want to engage in discussions outside of a traditional classroom. And one of the ways that researchers found this to be effective is that through blogging activities, which allows students to engage and build a sense of community while also building classroom rapport. So from all this research, we developed key findings that would help us not only fulfill the problem statement and problem space, but also construct Conversation Circle. Our first key finding is that events that are based on an artifact, such as a book, can still be enjoyable to those with no previous exposure to that specific artifact. A Ball State freshman said, I didn't read the book, but my friend wanted to go. The speaker was really interesting. Our next key finding is that you should carry a conversation beyond the story. This was said in an anonymous survey response. I love sports, and this story was about a man who overcame the odds and joined a wheelchair rugby league. So the story is very personal about the man, but they're able to hold a greater conversation about it because of that relationship to sports. Our next key finding is that students are more likely to participate in an activity if they have the opportunity to share their experience with others. A senior speech pathology major said, "Focus gave me the opportunity to share my faith with others and create new friendships." And our last finding is that autonomy is important to organic participation. A Ball State freshman said, "I will read things that interest me. It's harder, you know, when you try to force interest on others."
All right, now we will go over the high fidelity prototype. So first, our experience starts with advertisement. And there are 3 components that will be part of the advertisement. The first one will be a card that has a QR code on it that will lead students to our website. The QR code card will say this conversation is important and that's it, nothing else, except for the URL to the website as well, in case students don't have the QR code app. The second component will be a small card that says share your story, and the prompt will be tell us about a time where you experienced a cross-cultural difference or misunderstanding. They can either write their notes on the card or go to the website and actually submit their story. The third aspect will be an actual flyer that is more defined and more descriptive of what the project entails and what the event is. So it says conversation circle, students sharing powerful stories. It says meet new friends and share your cross-cultural experiences. It gives a place and a time and the URL to the website if they want to learn more about the project or the event. So next we have the digital experience. There will be 2 components to this experience. Conversation circle entails the digital aspect and then the physical enacting space. So in the digital space, there will be a website where students who maybe don't want to attend the actual events can participate without knowing. So they will see on the website in the About section, what is the conversation circle? This is where the purpose and the goal will be described, as well as the final events, or the events and the final event leading up to the freshman common reader. There will also be a section that says stories. It says share your story, tell us about a time you faced a cross-cultural misunderstanding. This is a place where students can actually write their stories and submit them. Their name will not be required, just because of anonymity purposes. And email will be required just in case we do need to edit their stories or ask them questions that we have regarding like editorial issues, or also in case there's some kind of inappropriate language or statements that they made. So students at the bottom can check off either 3 of these checkboxes. One says, I want to read my story at the event. I prefer somebody else to read my story at the event, or I do not want my story read at the event. The students will understand what to do based off of the description in the About section. Whatever they choose is perfectly fine. Nobody's forced to do anything. So the meetings that will lead up to the final event will be essentially called Conversation Circle. And there will be 2 meetings. The first meeting will be at the Student Center sometime during the week, at the beginning of the year, where students can come and mingle and talk and just kind of meet each other, make new friends. And then the moderator will have a prompt or a question to ask the students regarding a theme to the freshman common reader. However, the prompt will not be very direct or related to the freshman common, it will not be mentioned as the freshman common reader. So for example, they will say, tell us about a time that you faced a cross-cultural misunderstanding. And that is the conversation that the group would be having for that session. Now at the end of the session, students will receive a card that says share your story at Be Here Now. The moderator will explain that if they would like to do a reading at the final event, which is at Be Here Now, they can. They just have to submit their story online to the website where all the stories will be submitted. And the same exact process would happen at the second meeting. And the purpose of the second meeting is to build a sense of community, so it's not just a one meeting type of meeting and then the event. It won't really get students to on board at all. So the second meeting will serve that purpose. Now once all the stories are submitted, whether it's people who have not participated at these meetings or attended them, or if it's somebody who has been participating on both meetings, all the stories will be reviewed by the Freshman Leadership Council. And the council will review and edit the stories, make sure that the spelling and grammar errors are fixed. and then they would choose the top 10 best stories that they feel would work great for the final event, and they will ask those students to present those stories. The final event will be a Be Here Now, and this is where like the 10 students will read their stories. At the end of the event, the audience will receive small cards very similar to the ones that were passed out at the meetings and the advertisement. It says share your story. Now it gives the audience the opportunity to participate, and they can submit their stories online as well. There will also be resources at the event where the audience and the members who participate in storytelling will receive guidance or resources to anything that's related to the Freshman Common Reader theme. And lastly, the website will archive all of the stories that were submitted, and this will be in video and text format. The video will be of the recap of this Be Here Now storytelling event, and the text archive will be based on all of the stories that were submitted by students who have participated in the event or who have not at all. So whoever visits this website will understand that, okay, this is the event, this is what happened. They could watch the video of the final thing, or they can just read all the stories that were submitted.
So Conversation Circle is the culmination of findings from both low fidelity testing and medium fidelity testing. Our low fidelity testing started with our team generating 50 how might we questions and then creating 7 unique low fidelity sketches. We used usability packets to hand out to 6 users for testing. These packets include a description of each of the prototypes as well as a system usability scale to evaluate what ideas users like or dislike. And what we learned is that one idea was really favored over another, however certain aspects were enjoyed by users. What we learned is that freshmen want to participate in an activity where they can meet other students. One student said, I almost wish it was mandatory to go. I met a lot of friends at the freshman convocation that we had to go to. And we also learned that students want to hear each other's stories. So while a student said, while I might not feel comfortable performing, I would love to watch other people participate.
All right, now we'll go over the medium fidelity prototype. So for this medium fidelity prototype, we tested our prototype on 6 users. Students were walked through the narrative of the event and asked questions to improve our ideas and identify constraints. So something that we learned is that based off the usability for this prototype, participants need the options of having somebody else to read their story. A student said, I think there is a contingency for someone who does not want to read their story aloud. They might be good at writing, but not so great at public speaking. Another finding was that participants need the option of submitting their stories anonymously, and anonymity must be clear in the marketing. A student said anonymity is huge because this can be a personal subject. We also learned that the current advertisement in that prototype lacks a compelling headline and clear description of the project's purpose. A student said, I don't like we all have a story, what's yours? Like I'm sitting at a job interview and they ask for your life story. I want a more interesting hook. We also learned that a mystery box should be used to get people to participate in the project. There should be enough vagueness so that it doesn't feel like a process. If it is already spelled out for me, I will most likely not participate, the student said. And most importantly, we learned that the storytelling event engages students with the theme of the FCR. A student said, I really like the speaking aspect. I think it is interesting to have students being more engaged with the theme of the Freshman Common Reader. And also, this experience must be accessible to students with various writing skills and might require editing stories prior to publishing online for storytelling at the event. A student said, foreign exchange students might not write as well in English. Can you edit their writing?
So right now we want to talk about how Conversation Circle fulfills the brief. To do this, we're going to reintroduce you to the problem statement, which is to create a transmedia experience centered around the Freshman Common Reader that serves as an introduction to the book's larger theme and its relevance to the audience while allowing autonomy over participation. First, our Conversation Circle allows autonomy over participation because students have different ways to engage in the experience. They can submit their story, they can read their story, they can have someone else read their story, or they can just submit a story and have no one read it. We also create an enacting space that encourages conversation outside of a traditional academic environment. So we're hosting events at my Be Here Now to take that setting off campus. And this is also giving students the opportunity to meet, it's giving freshmen the opportunity to meet other students, not just Ball State freshmen, but the greater Ball State community. And this also meets the transmedia requirement as the project takes students from a digital space to a physical enacting space. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.